Welcome back, everybody. My name is Legit Lee. Thank you for watching this video here. I know I'm streaming right now live for you guys once again. I'm trying to get this as a regular thing going on. Today I'm streaming again about Blender. So these are like Blender live streams for the most part, about me streaming and designing in Blender. Last week we were trying to make these Mecanum wheels, and I was having a little bit of trouble trying to get everything designed up right. Did some more research on the Mecanum wheels though this week, and I feel like I have it down pat. Now, I haven't designed it yet in Blender. I've just been watching some videos and got some design tips and stuff. And there are multiple ways, like I mentioned, that you can actually get this set up. So that's the reason why I wanted to actually do this kind of over again, so you guys can see how you can actually get this going. But we're going to go ahead and jump into Blender here. I have it pulled up. This will be like the basis when you first start off. Like I said, we're starting from scratch basically right now. So first thing I'm going to do is get my mouse button going on here, because I want to make sure you guys can see all the buttons I'm clicking. So we're going to open, and we're going to run the script. If I believe it should be in downloads, there it goes, because we need to do a screencast. So I have this set up. We're running a script now. I'll go back into 3D view, hit N on the keyboard to bring it up, and start display. Now you can see everything that I'm doing over here in this little corner. So if I, pan, that's the middle mouse button. If I hit N, you'll see N, and, Z and so forth. So without further ado, I'm just going to adjust this just a little bit so you guys can hear me a little better. Which way is it? This way? I believe it's this way. Can you guys hear me okay? I feel like you can hear me okay. Anyway, so now that we're in Blender, we got our panel up. Let's go ahead and start getting everything set up properly. So we're gonna do millimeters, because like I mentioned before, 3D printers use millimeters for the measurements. So we're gonna go into this display data, basically active data to display. We're gonna go down here, do millimeters again like I normally do. Now we're in millimeters in our units. That's what Blender is currently viewing. But we have to set up how we can see our grid line, because we're like super zoomed in here. So what we're gonna do is go to our display. So if you just scroll down here on the end panel, you have scale. You want to scale this to be real world. So you just basically are copying this number 0.001. So we're going to do this really quick here. Now you can see we're in the same exact display as everything else, and our grid lines is 16 millimeters squared. Each square is 1 millimeter exactly. So if you want to do where you're doing your print bed size like how I do, you're going to want to do 240 is for a Creality Ender 3 3D printer. Now this varies. If you have a different printer and a different bed size, just put whatever bed size that is. So you see I hit enter and it got super big, but that's just because this cube now is actually 2 millimeters squared. And you can see if we go into top view here, we need to go into perspective. Let me hit 5, and we're in orthographic mode, because we were just in perspective mode basically. And you can see meters is 0.001, so that is millimeters. This is 1 millimeter a box, so this is 2 millimeters, which you can double check if you hit display. If you have measure it tool active, which you have to go into your properties panel to get active. So if you go to properties, I don't know if you guys can see this or not. Let me just double check here. So yeah, you can't see it, but if you go into properties, it will show. If you go into edit, I believe, no, add-ons. If you go into add-ons, you just type in measure it and just have to click the button. But you guys can't see it because I'm only viewing my Blender mode right now, so you don't need to see all that anyway. It's fine. But so yeah, if we want to check out if we're correct on our measuring, I'm just gonna change this around a little bit. So that was 50 for the font size. This is 1 millimeter away. Use red to view my information. Go into tab here. Gonna hit edge loop just to do this segment show, and it's showing in meters, but if we go down and change it here, this will be millimeters, and there you have it, 2 millimeters for the size of the cube. And you can see it's matching up exactly. One box starts here, so we're at 1 from the green line, and from that green line to this one is 2. So pretty basic, but I know a lot of people don't know all this, so I'm trying to give you guys information as best I see fit here. Anyway, so I don't really need this right now, so I'm gonna delete that. Let's get out of here. We're gonna just move where we can see a little bit here. So we're going to go ahead and grab our image. So I got another reference image, and I use reference images for a start off point, but they're never going to be what your reference image is. So take that with a grain of salt. Try not to use your reference image as accurate as possible. Just use it as best you can. Nobody's gonna get mad at you for not being able to pinpoint accurately get everything set up right. So we're gonna add an image. I'm gonna go to add image. Here you see background images for the drop down. We're gonna hit open. I'm going to go into pictures, and I have one for a Mecanum wheel that I've seen this one guy on YouTube designing. What I did was just use my snipping tool. I highlighted the screen, paused the video, and grabbed his design really quick to make things a lot easier. So let me see where that is. Here we go, Mecanum. And we can't see it right now because we're not in the exact view to view it. If you press 1 on your number pad while you're in orthographic mode, you'll be able to see it now. So this was the screenshot that I did. I'm going to go ahead and delete this box because we don't actually need this one. Delete. So as you can see, this was on the picture. It shows 30 degrees. That's the actual degrees from each individual cut point, basically. So what we're going to do is first grab us, we're in our object mode, make sure you're in object mode. We're going to hit Shift A, and you're going to grab a cylinder. So the cylinder is going to be shown as the dead center for each individual location. So this is 0 on the X, Y, and Z plane here. So we're actually not at floor level. As you can see, it's cutting through the center of that cylinder. So if you want to move it up, you can. I prefer to work dead center on my stuff, so I would recommend you doing it. So I do, if I go here, dimensions, scale, rotation, and location. So location right here, we want to move it just up 1 millimeter. So if we hit 1, now we're at exactly dead plane floor here. You can see that the grid line is not cutting through our cylinder, which is great. So now that we have that, every square or cylinder that you're bringing into Blender right now is going to be exactly 2 millimeters. And how you can tell is your dimensions here shows 2 millimeters. It's 2 millimeters in width from the x-axis, left and right. It's going to be 2 millimeters on the y-axis. That's front to back on that green line you see right here. If we go into this view, that's front and back, or forward and backwards, whatever you want to call it. And then our Z plane is up and down. So you can see it's exactly in the center for X, Y, and Z, which is 2 millimeters squared, basically. So what we're going to do is want to scale this up. I want to do 150 millimeters because my print bed size is a pretty big size. You see that? That's 240. So we have enough room to print that big of a wheel. And I want to have that big of a wheel because the design I'm doing is going to be for a robot. That's usually what you will make them wheels for. But I wanted to make sure that when I design this wheel that it's going to be big enough that it can go through, you know, like on floors, in the grass, outside. You know, it's like a rough terrain basically is what I want to be able to design it for. So I need a bigger wheel circumference, just like if you was to get big wheels for your tires. If you got rims, like 22-inch rims and all that stuff, it gives you a good clearance before your robot or the bed of your car hits the pavement. So you want to make sure that the bigger the wheel you have, the more clearance you have. So if I'm running over dirt and say potholes or something, then my wheel will be able to not let the bottom of the robot smack against the ground. So we're gonna change it up here. I'm gonna zoom in. We need to scale this cylinder out to where we can see 150 millimeters. And then we can scale our picture to be that size too. See, this picture is too small. We can't know exactly what this size is. I mean, you can kind of see because of my grid line shows 1 millimeter, so you can kind of measure it out, but it's still not good enough. So what we'll do is we'll do kind of reverse, where we'll scale this out to be 150, and then we'll work from there. So all you have to do is for the dimensions, we're going to do on the X 150, and then on the Y 150. Now the Z you don't have to do 150 for, because of the fact that that's the height, and you can make it 2 millimeters. See, that's how tall it is. It's 2 millimeters in height. Now another thing, now we may have to delete that cylinder. I was just trying to show you that information, but you see how we have 30 degrees rotation angles here that we need to cut out. So we can actually make these lines represent our cylinder. Well, see, cylinder is still showing, so we can change it still. Those will be vertices and how many vertices or edges we have. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 individual cuts. Well, 12, I think, because I started from here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That was my mistake. So we have 12. Now we need to make 12 sides. So how you do that is just change the vertices over here from 32 to 12. And there you have it. So now we actually would be linked up with this information here. So now that we have 12 vertices, it went back down to 2 millimeters. So we're going to scale this back out again. So we'll do 150 and 150. And there we have it. So now we're at 150. We can just zoom out. So now you can see this is the print bed size. So it sits dead center. That looks pretty good. We have plenty of space to print this out with. Now we have to go back into 7, that's our top view, and we're going to scale this picture up as far as we can to match up these lines. So if we go back to our reference image or our background images, we can go right here down to the bottom corner. This says size of the background image and orthographic view only, basically. So if we just move this over, click on it and drag it out, we can actually scale it out to be really, really big. So we're scaling and scaling, and right about here looks pretty good. Now this picture is almost a complete perfect circle, but we have to rotate it because you can see it's kind of off on the axis. If you can see this green line or this dead center line right here, you can see this area right here. We have like, we're off a little bit. It's not matching up. So we need to rotate this image. So how you do that is just right here. R is rotation, and we're at 0 degrees right now. So if we just move it over backwards a little bit, we're in a negative zone right now for the rotation. That right here is a little right there. That looks pretty good. So we're negative 1.1 for my image, but this one may be different for you. It just depends. But that's how I have my stuff set up, so that's good. And you can see that our points aren't lining up with the points over here. This point needs to be right there. That point needs to be right there. So we need to rotate our design too. So how are you going to do that? We'll keep ourselves in wireframe mode, so you can see by hitting Z you can get in and out of wireframe. So right now we just have to rotate this we just have to rotate our mesh. So if we hit R to rotate, we can just drag down and match it up properly. So right about here looks pretty good. Most of them are lined up, but not all of them. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's hard to know. Maybe we shouldn't rotate it at all, because this is actually lining up precisely on our line. So I think we'll be alright with that. I think it's just this image, maybe because the way he positioned the camera probably threw off what it's really looking like, how he sees it. But he did draw it out using a stencil and all, and you know, rotation degrees, and he used everything he needed to use. So his design was legit. It's just the way he was angled the camera that I screen captured isn't completely accurate. So now now that we have that, we can go ahead and start working. So you can see right here we have notches, and the next part of the image, which I'm gonna double check here, which I'll probably just go ahead and grab. I'll have to actually implement. So he actually designed it a little better, so I'm gonna grab this really quick. So we may have to use a different reference image. I should have seen that. I've seen it, but I didn't pay attention. That was my mistake, guys. So I'm gonna grab this screen capture really quick. We'll just have to do the reference image over again really fast. It won't take long at all. I'll save this really fast here. Grab. You can't see what I'm doing, but it's there. So I'll just hit save as Mecanum 2. Save. Okay, we're done with that. So we're gonna go back into our reference images here. So we don't really need this one exactly. I'll keep it on here, but I'm gonna add another one. I may remove it. We'll just see. So let's just add another image. Go down here. We're going to open. Go to my pictures really quick. You see Mecanum 2. Now we have it, but it's super small. So we have to zoom this out again, like the last one. So if we are on Mecanum 2 right here, we just have to scroll this all the way up. And there we have it. That looks about right. Right about there. So we can get rid of this other one. I'm pretty sure we probably should just go ahead and do that so it won't be in the way. And then we're gonna make this one a little more, have more of an opacity so we can see it a little better. So basically opacity means visual, so it's how visual we can see the picture compared to like the background and everything else. You can see here that the picture isn't completely centered correctly, and so it's throwing us off a little bit. So I'm going to scale it down a little bit here if I can. There we go. Then we're going to move it over to the center. You can see this center is not with this center here. So how you do that is just by clicking on this one and dragging it over a little bit. And I would say right about there looks center enough. We do have to rotate the image slightly. So we're going to go right there, tilt it. So we're trying to make sure that the center line is lined up with the other center line. So right about here looks pretty good. Or we can completely rotate it and do it this way. Trying to make sure that he doesn't have this drawn out properly for this one, but it still works. We're gonna still use it because we're basically just trying to copy some of this information here. But so right there is pretty centered, I guess. Well, really, I feel like we should do this side, this one. Let's just rotate a little more here. Man, this stuff's tricky. Okay, you see how it throws some stuff off because that picture in the image just isn't completely accurate. So, what we'll rotate again. It's fine. I would say right about there. We're just gonna line up the green for now. Kind of match everything up properly. Just a little more this way. There we have it. Looks like it's off just a tad, so maybe it's -1.85 maybe.